The main man, Andrew Wood, coming back today, and what I have for you is going to be Savage Worlds Explorers Edition. This digest-sized book, it's fully colored and only $9.99. They want you to get invested in this game, and you can do that quite easily. Now, this book is all you need to play. You can play a vast amount of games right out of this book. Other great thing about this rule system is it saves the supplemental books, the series, from having to invest the core rules right into the book. You already have them right here, and that gives those extra pages don't have to be repetitive in the way they are for some games. So some of the books with the Savage World system, you have to have this to play. Some you don't. Some have it built in. There's a large number of games, titles that you can play under the Savage Worlds game system. You can play Cthulhu. You can play several different Supers games like Necessary Evil. There's a Fantasy Race Compendium, a Superpowers Compendium where you can build and create your own worlds. Shantar, I think is the name. It's like a Dungeons and Dragons style game. Hellfrost, Pirates of the Spanish Main, Solomon Kane. The list of games is very large. Deadlands that you can play with this game. So there's a lot you can do with this. But basically the main book here provides a great ability for pulp style games. 1920s era, 1930s era, very easy to do, but also you can do very good modern games with this. A lot of the things, I mean, even you can see right there, I mean, you know, with the passport, this is not really designed for today. This is designed for yesteryear and for years past beyond that as well. It gives you a great depth, a great spring point to be able to do that, exploring around in ancient ruins in the 1920s, to expand out and say, oh, you know, we've gotten to this thing where we found dinosaurs, you know, Lost World style, or, you know, flying around in those old rickety airplanes over there, exploring these lost civilizations, finding an ancient tribe, or running a King Kong style of game. There's just almost a limitless amount of possibilities that you can run with this game. You can take it futuristic, and the base book here provides a lot of information on that. Now, my review isn't going to be probably the best or most exhaustive of this game. I've never played the game before, I've never run the game before, but I've read the book, and I've read some of the supplements, and I watched some of the reviews. Now, Rob Pepper, Bland Human, is the, in my mind, definitive. I've watched all the reviews of this game, and there's some good ones out there, but his review, multi-part review of the Savage World setting is definitive. I'll probably miss a few things. He didn't miss anything. It's line by line, point by point. A great explanation if you're interested in getting the game. Watch Bland Humanoids. I think it's a 4-parter review, maybe a 3-part review on Savage Worlds. Absolutely excellent. In fact, it may have been his best videos, period. I mean, he does a marvelous job with that, so I can't give him enough credit. But, you know, you can see right there the kind of style, like it's the future but also the past, you know. The jetpacks and these flying aircraft carriers. This is the past version of future. So those old kind of games. They have another game called Mars where you're going up there, Flash Gordon style of game, which is very odd because it's not futuristic, Flash Gordon. It's pulp futuristic. So it's a weird sort of deal, and this game handles that well. I'm going to tell you basically how you run through and make a character. Now, this is just designed for a regular human in a normal game, and the different game worlds that they have supplemental rules that are different, and they make changes in the game as well, you understand. But say we're just making a human right out of this book, or right out of the character generator. The game has 5 stats: agility, smarts, spirit, strength, and vigor. All your stats go by die type. All stats start at a D4, and you can bring them up to a D12. There's ways to get past that at certain high levels, but we'll just stick with a D12 for right now. Now, you have 5 stats at a D4 automatically. You're going to receive 5 points to allocate. Now, each point gives you a die type raise, D4 to D6, D8, D10, D12. So if you want, you could put all your points into one stat, and then one extra into another stat. You could say jack your strength up to a 12, make your vigor jack your strength up to a D12, make your vigor a D6, have a D4 spirit, D4 agility, D4 smarts. The way I'm looking at it is D4 is a little under average, and 6 is probably about average, because you're a starting character here, and you can continue to raise these things with your experience points. Now you're also going to start with 15 skills. Skill points, you get a skill rank. You have no ability in a skill, essentially, unless you buy a rank in that skill. For 1 point, you get a D4 in a skill. Now the skill can, the skills are linked to stats, but the stat has only one bearing on the skill. Say, example, you have a strength-based skill, and your strength is D8. You can take for 1 point D4, for 2 points D6, for 3 points D8. But if you want to have that skill, and skills, of course, also use the die type. If you want to have that skill up to a D10, it's going to cost you 2 points. 2 points for every point that you raise it above whatever the correlating stat is. It's going to cost you 2 points for every die type above that stat you raise it. So that's something to think about when you're planning the character, particularly only getting 15 points. But I like any kind of system that does not require rolls. There are no rolls for generating your characters. Rolls for making your characters are just a horrible, antiquated part of the game, and it needs to just completely be pushed away. Not to say it was a horrible beginning idea to create a character, but it creates vastly characters that are vastly different in power, and it is one of the best avenues for cheating, because it's hard for people to remember those stats. I've seen people cheat over and over again on character stats. Any kind of system that does not have that, you can just look at it and go, well, that's not right, or okay, that's fine. It makes it easier for a game master, makes it more fair for everyone playing from the beginning. Now, so that's something I like about the game. So you get your skills, you get your stats. Charisma is not a stat. There's no charisma like stat. Spirit is not like charisma. It's more like wisdom or wits or willpower. Charisma is like a secondary sort of stat. You can basically buy edges that will help boost it up, or hindrances that'll lower it, so it starts at a 0. And you have pace, parry, and toughness, which are what they call derived statistics. Then you have edges and hindrances. At the start of the game, you can take 1 major hindrance and up to 2 minor hindrances. A major hindrance will give you 2 points. Each minor hindrance will give you 1 point. So you can only take up to 3 of them. But you don't have to. You can take none of them if you want, which helps make characters more different. I do like that. You don't have to, but you have the options. And when you take those points, two points, if you spend 2 points, so you could, let's say we take 2 minors and 1 major, we've got floating 4 points. We can use 2 of those points to buy a stat increase. So if I took all my stats and made them all D6, I could then increase my vigor all the way up to a D10. I could have D6 in all my stats and a D10 vigor, because that's I want my character to have a lot of attribute points. Or I could say, man, I just don't have enough skills for this guy. Well, I could take those 4 points and spend each one of them on a skill, because skills only cost you 1 point, so I have 4 more skill points. I don't like my character starting money. It's too low for me. I can spend each one of those points to raise it, basically acquire the starting funds. And the starting funds here, they give you $500. But it could be different depending on your game, but it's going to double it. It doesn't, continue to double it, but it'll give you another 500 every time. So I could have 2,500, and I could roll around with baller equipment when other people are kind of scraping by with some pretty basic stuff. I can take those points for 2 points, and I can buy an edge. Edges are like merits or feats, depending on what kind of game system you're more familiar with. But you can also mix and match. I could buy, for those 4 points, I could buy 1 stat raise. I could buy 1 edge. I could buy 2 skill points and an edge. I could buy an edge, a skill point, and a monetary increase. Or I might only take 1 minor. I might not want 2 minor flaws. I might only want 1 and 1 major flaw. Or I could just go in for 1 major flaw, or however you want to do it. It gives you a lot of customization. And that's also the only way that your character can start with edges in the basic Savage Worlds stat put together here. The initiative is not stat linked at all. It's completely pure coincidental random chance, and you're just dealt cards. You're given a deck of cards, including jokers, and you throw them out to the players. The players are called wild cards, some NPCs are wild cards, like the boss, like bosses, and normal NPCs, like you might have the Necromancer, right, who is the boss. So he's a wild card. He gets some special advantages, and he has a bunch of jabronis with him that are just zombies. Well, the zombies are meant to be dealt with and dispatched. They might be tough or whatever, but they're not going to be that difficult to be destroyed by the PCs. The game calls itself Fast Furious Fun, and I haven't played it yet, so I'm not quite sure, but it looks like it would run fairly quickly. One thing they do is a bit odd is there's no combat advantage in your feats. You know, there's skills that give you buy your fighting abilities through skills, but there's not, you know, get a +1 bonus to fighting or whatever. These skills that make you similar to, say, Dungeons & Dragons character are just giving you bonuses to skills, like, you know, your ranger in here is going to be able to track, or your wizard's getting, you know, magical sorts of abilities, and there's, you have to buy an edge basically to become a wizard, depending on what sort of game you're playing. Obviously, it's not going to fit into you know, like a science fiction style of game or Flash Gordon or whatever, but you know, the wizard might fit obviously very well into a Dungeons & Dragons game or into a superheroes style of game. So you can have that. And from this book right here, you know, it tells you in the Game Master section how to go about creating monsters, and how to go about creating other races. If you want to play a fantasy style of game, how you would go about doing that, how you would sort of monkey the statistics around to start that off. It has an experience point system, and as you gain experience, there's different rules to how you can buy, you know, the different points. There's limitations to how many of whatever you can raise, depending as you go up levels. The higher your level goes, you start off as a novice, you know, the higher you get up there, you get access to additional edges. That's basically the only real difference. And eventually some of those can even raise the caps of your stats. So you can be a very epic, very powerful individual by the time that you're, you know, at that legendary status. This book also has a number of monsters in it. There's a decent bestiary, and there's a horror toolkit with beasts in it. There's a lot of books for this game system that have beasts. And one of the really cool things about the system is it's a bolter-on. You know, it's like a bunch of Lego blocks that you start stacking. This is kind of your base. You know, this is like an old green Lego base, and you just start stacking the other books, other sets on top of that. And just depending on what you buy, you know, you can integrate the stuff. It ports in very easily. Outside of theme, you know, you don't want to have a wizard throwing a damage spell in the middle of just a normal Western style game. That doesn't make any sense. But, you know, if you want to have, you know, some stuff from a Solomon Kane game or from Necessary Evil ported in to Hellfrost that you're running, it's quite easy to do that. So the books themselves have a decent overlay where the fluff makes sense. Like, as long as it makes sense, the rest of it lines up fairly well. Certain things are going to be overpowered. A superpower character in, you know, Solomon Kane might be a bit more than the other adventurers are going to be able to take. But, you know, if you use your brain, the system bolts together very well and brings a lot of different styles of game together. The characters are also more in that BRP style where they are fragile. So Cthulhu works well for this. The D20 Cthulhu did not work well. I haven't read the Cthulhu game, but just from understanding the core rules here, I don't see any problem with playing Cthulhu with this system. However, you know, with BRP, I don't really see any reason to ever run Cthulhu in any other way than with the BRP system, because it works wonderfully for that game. But let me show you some artwork. You know, they have vampires. You could play Vampire the Masquerade or Mage the Ascension or Dungeons and Dragons with this game as well, not just, you know, other concepts. But it works well to any kind of strange idea you have, you know, for a little post-apocalyptic setting you've come up with, or, you know, a historical setting where you've changed a few things around. This game can handle any sort of Earth style of game. It doesn't create really powerful characters. So if you want galactic level superheroes or the equivalent of epic level Dungeons & Dragons characters, this game doesn't quite do that. But for lower power, you know, lower level sorts of characters, you know, you can definitely, this game will support vast numbers of ideas. And the starting book has a lot of wonderful artwork in it. I'll show you that picture. One of the problems is some of this artwork is repeated in other books. So that's always a bit cheap when you've paid for 2 different books and you're getting the same artwork. But in here, it's got normal stuff like a lion and a wolf, but it also has a minotaur and a lich. Right here in the base book, it has an ogre, and this ogre looks like a luchador for some reason. Over here, sharks, snakes, vampires and trolls, werewolves, and in the back of the book, just in case you're not too sure what you want to do with this, and it talks about the different styles of games in here for the game mastering section, about running fantasy and creating fantasy races, about running science fiction, and so forth. And you really could run just about anything, and as long as it's not incredibly high power level you want, and very few game masters ever really want that, particularly for starting. This game does it well. It's got weapon systems and damage in here. Let's see. So you can just kind of see. I mean, that's a really kind of post-apocalyptic looking drawing there, and a lot of good drawings. The pages look quite nice as well. The book is small though. It's kind of weird sitting on a game shelf. It's not your standard role-playing game book size. But at the very back of it, you have a Savage Tale, and that's what they call their little short modules. There's a lot of them, a lot of books out there you can buy, and I think they even have some free right on their website. So you can just go and check that out. This is just a little 2-page spread. I mean, that's all it is. You have a map. You have a picture of the boat right here. A map right over here. And this is in the Caribbean. You're playing pirates. It's the 1600s, and that's what you're doing in here. You're fighting very stereotypical cannibals. And I looked at that, and I was going to run this, and my mind works in odd ways, and somehow I came up with a post-apocalyptic game involving vampires that I was going to put together. That I did put together, which I probably will run as a one-shot to give the players a better understanding of the system before we actually roll into Sunder Skies or Necessary Evil or another game out of this line, or before I just sit down and build my own thing with it. But I do recommend this game. I definitely wouldn't say that it looks like the perfect game. I think some people might put it over a bit much. It is a little crunch light, a little lighter in the crunch department than I would like, but it's not completely rules light. It's heavier on the rules than the book itself tries to purport that it is. And they're again absolutely beautiful books. You can see in that the people that put this book together did a very good job. I mean, Savage Worlds is very good, and I look forward to being able to play mini games with that in the future and running those. And of course, I'll give you guys updates on that. If you've played Savage Worlds, let me know what you think. Let me know if the rules are too light for you, how they work, if there's real problems that you've seen, and if so, what you've done to correct them with house rules.